It begins with the sound you don't hear. The faint rhythm of a heart that has beaten for decades suddenly misses a note. One skipped beat. Then another. The monitor still hums quietly, a green line rising and falling in perfect motion. Until it doesn't. Inside the room, time holds its breath. The nurse at the bedside looks up. She has seen that pattern before. The slow drift toward nothingness. Her hand moves to the patient's wrist, fingers searching for a pulse that has already vanished. And then, the silence breaks. The heart monitor screams a single flat tone that slices through the room. Code blue. The words travel faster than thought. Within seconds, feet pound against the hospital floor. Doors swing open. The calm of the corridor shatters. In another room, a doctor drops his coffee. In the ICU, a resident grabs the crash cart. Every heartbeat in the building seems to sync with that alarm. Except for one. The patient's. When a heart stops, the body does not die instantly. For a few precious seconds, the brain clings to the fading traces of oxygen still flowing through its veins. The lungs hold a whisper of air. The cells scream for energy they can no longer receive. The nurse begins compressions. Her palms press down hard, 30 times in rhythm. The ribs creak. The body moves, but life does not. She breathes once, twice, forcing air into lungs that refuse to rise. More staff rush in. A doctor takes charge. Time of arrest? He asks. 30 seconds ago. To those outside, it's chaos. To those inside, it's choreography. Rehearsed 100 times, but every time feels new. Because this is no mannequin. This is someone's father, someone's wife, someone's story, suspended between life and silence. The crash cart hums as the defibrillator powers up. Electrodes attached to the chest. Clear! A jolt of electricity leaps through the body, enough to make the muscles jump, enough to make the heart remember what it once did on its own. For a moment, nothing. Then, the faintest twitch of movement on the monitor. A heartbeat trying to return. But the battle has only begun. Every second after the heart stops is a thief. It steals oxygen, steals warmth, steals the fragile link between body and soul. The team knows it. 10 seconds without circulation, and the brain begins to fade. 4 minutes, and damage starts to carve itself into memory. 10, and the chances of coming back drop like a stone. Resume compressions, the doctor orders, his voice steady, slicing through the noise. The nurse's arms move like a machine. Strong, rhythmic, relentless. Every push is a desperate demand for life, forcing blood to move, forcing the body to believe that the heart has not yet surrendered. Around the bed, the air feels heavy. A respiratory therapist kneels by the head, adjusting the mask, delivering oxygen through a bag that hisses with each squeeze. Another nurse connects IV lines, flooding the veins with medication that might spark the heart again. Epinephrine, the chemical whisper that says fight one more time. Charging to 200. The defibrillator beeps, its light blinking like a pulse waiting to be born. Clear! The room freezes for a breath. A spark leaps across the chest. A sound like thunder inside the stillness. The body jerks. The line on the monitor dances, then flattens again. Continue CPR. Outside the room, families wait in hallways built on hope. They don't see the sweat, the trembling hands, the quiet urgency that fills every inch of the code room. Inside, the team doesn't think of failure. They think of minutes, seconds, heartbeats. 2 minutes elapsed, someone says. Another dose of epi. The doctor glances at the monitor. Still flat. A silent horizon of light. He presses his stethoscope to the chest. hoping for the faintest murmur of return. There's none. He takes a breath, his voice low but fierce. Don't stop. Not yet. And so they keep going, hands pressing down, lungs filling, hearts refusing to quit. This is medicine in its rawest form. Not gentle, not perfect, but powerful. It's the fight between science and silence. In those minutes, the patient is suspended in a fragile twilight. Not gone, but not here. The heart has stopped, but the body hasn't given up. Deep inside, tiny electrical impulses flicker in the muscle fibers, like sparks in a dying fire. If the right shock, the right breath, the right beat aligns, that fire could burn again. And that's what everyone in the room is praying for. One single heartbeat.
Charge again, the doctor says. Clear. The second jolt hits. The monitor jumps, and this time, something changes. A faint blip appears, small, weak, but alive. Someone exhales, a whisper of hope. But no one celebrates yet, because in Code Blue, life doesn't return all at once. It comes back in pieces, and any piece can still slip away. The monitor flickers like a candle in the wind. Single's heartbeat blinks across the screen, small and uncertain. A fragile rhythm trying to remember its own song. Hold compressions, the doctor says quietly. The nurse lifts her hands, the room frozen in that second of suspense. All eyes turn to the monitor. Beep. Then again. Beep. It's faint, irregular. A heart that's forgotten its rhythm after traveling to the edge. But it's there. And in this room, that's everything. The nurse exhales, sweat running down her temple. The doctor watches the pattern. We've got a pulse, he murmurs. It's not victory yet. It's an invitation to keep fighting. Check blood pressure. 70/40, weak, but there. Good. Let's stabilize. The team moves as one body, every gesture rehearsed, every second sacred. Oxygen flows, fluids drip, monitors hum their song of survival. The rhythm grows a little stronger. Outside, the hallway has gone quiet. Family members glance up every time a door opens, their hearts pounding in rhythm with a monitor they cannot see. Inside, life is rebuilding itself, molecule by molecule. For the patient, it's different. Inside that quiet mind, somewhere between darkness and light, the world feels far away. There's no pain, no time, only a soft echo of sound. Some say it feels like floating, others say like dreaming. Science can measure heartbeats and oxygen, but it cannot measure that silence. The doctor leans closer, eyes on the screen. Sinus rhythm coming back, he says softly. A smile almost forms, but it's not time yet, because a heart can return and still be lost again. The body, after cardiac arrest, is like a city after a blackout. Lights flicker back one building at a time. The brain, deprived of oxygen, starts to heal slowly, if it's not too late. The kidneys, the liver, the lungs, all waiting for the return of blood like earth waiting for rain. The nurse checks the IV. Epi running at 0.1. The respiratory therapist adjusts the oxygen. Saturation at 85, climbing. Every small number means something here. A code, a sign, a whisper from the body saying, I'm still here. But the doctor knows how fragile this victory is. One wrong rhythm, one missed breath, and that small flicker could vanish again. He places his hand on the patient's shoulder. Stay with us, he whispers. Not to the body, but to the spirit that lingers somewhere between the world of the living and whatever comes after. In that moment, Everyone in the room feels it. The quiet miracle that science can't explain. The invisible line where life hesitates, then decides to return. And as the heart steadies, the monitor fills with rhythm again. Fragile, but alive. When a heart restarts, it doesn't come back quietly. Every organ, every cell that lived in darkness for minutes suddenly feels the rush of life again, and not all of them are ready for it.
The chest, the newly awakened heart beats like thunder after a long silence. It pumps blood with the urgency of a storm, forcing oxygen into vessels that were moments from surrender. But the body, confused by this resurrection, doesn't know whether to rejoice or recoil. In the brain, neurons that had fallen asleep in the dark begin to wake. Some flicker back to life immediately, others are too weak to return. Oxygen surges in, feeding the mind, but also creating chaos, a flood that can heal or harm. This is called reperfusion, when blood returns after being gone. It's a miracle, but it's also dangerous. The sudden oxygen sparks a fire of chemical reactions. Free radicals tear through weakened cells. The brain tries to repair itself even as it trembles from the shock. To the doctors, it's unseen, but in that patient's skull, it's a battle between recovery and collapse. The doctor glances at the monitor. Heart rate 72, blood pressure climbing. Good signs. But he knows what's happening underneath. The hidden storm that comes after revival. Let's start cooling, he says. The nurse nods and sets up cold saline. Lowering the body's temperature slows the damage, buys the brain time to heal. Every hospital has its own ritual for protecting the mind after a code blue, and this is theirs. Slow the fire, save the light. In the lungs, air flows again through tiny branches of tissue that had started to close. Oxygen mixes with carbon dioxide, a rhythm restored. Yet small clots and pressure shifts can still threaten that fragile exchange. The ventilator hisses softly, delivering precise breaths like a lullaby for a wounded body. In the kidneys, blood begins to trickle back after being gone too long. They filter waste again, but not perfectly. Toxins still swim in the veins, reminders of the minutes when the world stopped turning. The nurse watches the patient's face. It's pale, motionless, yet peaceful, as if unaware that the body it belongs to is fighting the fiercest war of its existence. Pulse steady, someone says. Oxygen 92. Good news, but the team doesn't celebrate. Not yet, because they've seen this before. The heartbeat that comes back, the monitor that stabilizes, the relief that fills the room. And then, minutes later, the rhythm collapses again. That's why no one leaves. They stand guard, watching, listening, waiting. Each beat on the screen is a promise, fragile, temporary, but real. Outside, dawn begins to rise over the hospital windows. The city stirs, the world continues. But inside this one room, time is still measured in heartbeats. And for now, that heart is still fighting. While the team works, the patient drifts in a space that has no clock. To the world, only minutes have passed, but inside that fading mind time has stretched into something endless. At first there is darkness, thick and heavy, like the bottom of the ocean. Then, slowly, fragments of sound filter through. The distant hum of machines, a voice calling a name, a rhythm that could be rain or a heartbeat trying to return. Scientists call this a near-death state. The body appears silent, yet the brain refuses to vanish completely. Pockets of neurons keep firing, recording flashes of memory, shapes of light, echoes of touch. Some patients later describe it as floating above the room, others as walking through a tunnel, but in truth it may be the brain's final defense, a storm of electrical activity bursting through the dark. Back in the room, the doctor adjusts the ventilator. "Maintain oxygen," he says softly. The nurse nods, unaware that deep inside the patient's skull a spark still burns. Every wave of oxygen that reaches the brain is another chance for that spark to find its way home. For the patient, the darkness begins to thin. There is no fear here, only calm. A memory flickers. A familiar laugh, the scent of morning coffee, the warmth of sunlight on skin. The brain, starving for oxygen, starts pulling pieces of the past like old photographs, replaying comfort in its final attempt to survive. Then, faintly, something changes. A vibration, a tremor that ripples through the chest. The world grows louder. A voice says, "We've got a pulse." Another says, "Stay with us." The words don't make sense, but the tone does. It sounds like hope. Electrical waves surge again through the cortex. Slowly, rhythm returns. The brain, the lungs, the heart begin to speak the same language once more. Outside, no one knows what the patient feels. They only see a body on a bed, still and pale, while numbers blink green across the screen. But within that body, consciousness is weaving itself back together, delicate as glass. Life, after stopping, does not roar back all at once. It whispers first. And somewhere inside, the mind hears that whisper and answers. Down the hall, beyond the double doors where the words "Code Blue" echo like thunder, a family waits. The chairs are too small, the air too cold. Every sound, a distant footstep, the closing of a door, feels louder here. Time doesn't move the same way in a hospital waiting room. It stretches, bends, and holds its breath. A woman sits with her hands clasped tightly, whispering prayers under her breath. Beside her, a young boy stares at the floor, tracing the same pattern on the tiles again and again. No one talks much, not because there's nothing to say, but because words can't reach the place where fear lives. Every time the intercom beeps, their hearts stop for a second. Every time someone in scrubs walks by, they look up, searching for an answer in their eyes. But the door to the code room stays closed. Inside, life and death are still wrestling. Outside, the family clings to hope they can't see. The mother's phone buzzes, messages of, "We're praying for you. Any news yet? Stay strong." She doesn't answer. She just stares at the door, as if she could will it to open. Minutes turn into hours. The coffee in her cup goes cold. The clock ticks in slow motion. And then, finally, a sound. Footsteps. The door opens. A doctor steps out, his face calm but unreadable. In that single second, the entire world hangs between words. He takes a slow breath. "We got him back." Her hands fly to her mouth. She doesn't cry, not yet. She just nods, as if her body needs time to understand the meaning of survival. The boy looks up. "He's okay?" The doctor gives a tired smile. "He's alive. He's stable." For the first time in hours, they exhale. The waiting room, once a cage of silence, fills with the soft sound of breathing, of relief. The mother whispers, "Thank you." The doctor nods. He fought hard, but as he walks away, his shoulders sag slightly. Because he knows, surviving a code blue is only the beginning. The road back is long, uncertain, and filled with shadows. Still, for tonight, there's light. The mother closes her eyes and lets a single tear fall. Not from sadness, but from the miracle of one more heartbeat. The ICU is different. It doesn't shout like the emergency room. It whispers. Every sound is slower here. The steady beep of monitors, the quiet sigh of ventilators, the soft shuffle of nurses moving between rooms. The patient lies beneath pale lights, wrapped in silence. A tube carries oxygen to lungs still learning to breathe again. Wires trace the rhythm of a heart that once forgot its beat. Machines surround the bed like guardians, measuring every breath, every drop, every pulse. The code blue is over, but the battle is not. When the heart stops, the body doesn't just lose blood flow, it loses time. And in the minutes between death and revival, damage begins its quiet work. The brain struggles to wake. The kidneys whisper in protest. The blood thickens. The temperature drops. Now begins the slow undoing of all that damage. Minute by minute, cell by cell. Doctors stand at the bedside, their eyes reading data the way others read stories. Heart rhythm steady. Blood pressure holding. Oxygenation improving. Each number on the monitor isn't just a value, it's a voice. a sign that the body, against every odd, is still speaking. Nurses adjust drips, wipe sweat from the patient's brow, speak softly even though they don't expect a reply. Because sometimes, even in the deepest coma, people remember voices. And sometimes, that's enough to guide them home. Outside the glass window, the world keeps turning. Sunrises, traffic, laughter, rain. Inside, time moves differently. Every second stretches between hope and uncertainty. The family visits quietly, afraid to breathe too loudly. The mother touches her son's hand. It's warm now. She whispers stories from home, memories of small, ordinary days. Somewhere in the patient's silent world, maybe those words echo. Doctors know the truth. Not every patient who survives cardiac arrest wakes up. But they also know this. Sometimes the human spirit refuses to follow the rules of biology. And so they keep watch. They listen to the fragile rhythm that once vanished. They hold on to the miracle that still hums through the wires. Because in this room, survival is not just about numbers. It's about will. It's about time. It's about the quiet, stubborn heartbeat that whispers, "Not done yet." It begins quietly. No alarms, no rush, just a flicker beneath the eyelids. The monitors still hum their steady song, nurses move gently around the room, and yet something has shifted in the air. The patient, who has been lying still for days, breathes differently now. The rhythm is stronger, deeper. The doctor leans closer, eyes narrowing. "There it is," he says softly. Reflex is returning. It's not just a reflex, it's a whisper from consciousness. Inside the mind, light begins to form. At first, it's only flashes, shapes, sounds, echoes. A memory here, a familiar voice there. The brain, having slept in darkness, begins to rebuild its world. Then, with one slow breath, the eyelids tremble again and open. For a moment, everything is blurry. The ceiling lights glow like distant stars. The sounds of machines blend with human voices. It feels like waking up in another universe. The nurse notices first. "Doctor, we've got movement." He steps forward. "Can you hear me?" The patient's eyes blink once, twice, then focus. A faint nod. The simplest motion in the world, yet it breaks the silence like a miracle. The mother, standing in the corner, gasps. Tears fill her eyes before she even realizes she's crying. She moves closer, afraid it might all disappear if she blinks too long. "Hey," she whispers. "You came back." The patient doesn't speak. The tube in the throat makes that impossible. But there's a look, a spark, a recognition that says everything words cannot. For the doctors and nurses, it's a quiet victory. Not dramatic, not loud, but profound. Because this is what they fight for. Not applause, not perfection, but this single fragile moment when life opens its eyes again. The patient's gaze drifts, searching. Maybe they remember the darkness, the nothingness that almost claimed them. Maybe not. But somewhere deep inside, the body remembers the hands that refused to let go, the voices that called it back. And as the machines continue their calm beeping, a sunrise spills through the ICU window. It's soft, golden, alive. The first light this soul has seen since stepping beyond the edge. The nurse whispers, almost to herself, "Welcome back." Recovery does not arrive like a sunrise. It comes in fragments, slow, uncertain, fragile. Days pass in a blur of quiet mornings and sleepless nights. The patient lies beneath soft sheets, eyes open now, but the body still feels foreign, heavy, unfamiliar, fragile. Every breath is measured, every heartbeat watched. Every whisper of pain a reminder of the journey just survived. The nurses move gently around the bed, checking drips, recording vitals, speaking in low voices meant to comfort. "Try to rest," they say, though rest is hard when every part of you aches to understand why you're still here. The first days are simple, opening the eyes, moving fingers, responding to sound. Then come the harder ones, learning to speak again, to swallow, to remember. Sometimes the patient stares at the ceiling, lost between gratitude and confusion. There are flashes, faces, voices, dreams of floating in darkness. Were they real? Were they part of the world beyond? Science has no answer for that, and maybe it never will. The mother visits each day, holding his hand and telling stories of the outside world. The dog waiting at home, the smell of coffee in the kitchen, the sunlight on the garden wall. He listens in silence, his eyes wet but peaceful. Those stories are small, ordinary things, but they are bridges back to life. Doctors call it post-resuscitation care. But for the human soul, it's something more. It's learning how to exist again after standing on the edge of nothing. Some nights, when the ward grows quiet and the machines hum softly in the dark, the patient thinks about what it means to have another chance. There's fear, yes. Fear of the heart stopping again. Fear of not being the same person as before. But there's also wonder. Every breath feels like a gift. Every sunrise through the ICU window feels like proof of something sacred. And as the body grows stronger, so does the will. The patient begins to move, first a hand, then a leg, then a trembling step guided by a nurse. Each step feels like climbing a mountain,